Go. Can you guys give it up for our worship team? Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Guys, that was lame. Give it up for our worship team. They're fantastic. Wow. All right. Hey, you guys excited to be here tonight or what? Who has the best leader in the house? Who thinks they have the best small group leader? I don't know. You're going to have to do a lot of convincing that you have the best leader, because we've got a whole slew of amazing leaders. We're so grateful. I don't know if Pastor Luke said this because I wasn't paying attention, just like all y'all right now. Oh, snap. But in 2 weeks when we have our Christmas party, it is a themed costume contest, dress-up contest with your small group, okay? So you have to talk to your small group leader, come up with a theme on what you guys are going to dress up as for the costume contest. There will be prizes, okay? Annie, there will be prizes. You hear me? All right. Everybody with me, say yes. All right, who had the best Thanksgiving ever? Who had the best Thanksgiving? Noah had a good Thanksgiving. Who else had the best Thanksgiving ever? Nobody. You had, come on, Abby had the best Thanksgiving. You guys had the best Thanksgiving over here? What is, when I say this, I need you to shout it out to me as loud as possible. What is the best food you eat on Thanksgiving? Ready? 3, 2, 1. What is it? I heard a lot of turkey. Raise your hands if it's turkey. Is it? A lot of y'all scream turkey, but nobody wants to raise their hand. All right. Who's like, I don't eat turkey, I eat ham on Thanksgiving? Who is that? Yeah, we're in Iowa, dude. We're in Iowa. Largest pork producing state in the nation, bruh. Come on. I wish I had ham on Thanksgiving, but I had to eat turkey because my father-in-law was in charge, okay? And he cooked turkey. I would prefer ham. Raise your hand if you are a pumpkin pie over apple pie person. Pumpkin pie. All right. Raise your hand if you're an apple pie person. Yeah. A genuine classic American. That's who you are. If you like apple pie over pumpkin pie. Raise your hand if you have somebody in your family that pronounces it pumpkin and not pumpkin. Come on. Pumpkin? Yeah, I got a few of those. So, hey, I love that we had a great Thanksgiving. I love that we're back to youth. But who knows? The best holiday is coming up. What is it? In my house, we don't say Christmas. We say Christmas because it's all about Carissa in my house. So, you like that? Thanks, Zach. Thank you, Isaac, for laughing at that for me. I called you Zach. You're welcome. It's a nickname. Deal with it. Hey, I'm glad to be back at youth tonight, and we are wrapping up our series, The Struggle is Real. And we have been talking about these last 10 weeks. Can you guys even believe it's been 10 weeks? It's crazy. But we've been talking about these last 10 weeks about the Israelites, about the struggle that they've gone through from slavery to freedom. You guys remember that? You with me? Say yes. Come on. All right, some of you aren't with me tonight. If you're with me, say yes. If you're talking to your friend, you're talking to the wrong person. Y'all should be paying attention up here. All right, so we've been talking about this Israelites. We've been talking about the Jews. We've been talking about God's people, God's chosen family through the seed of Abraham, right? And we started the series with Abraham. We told the story of Abraham and his family and how God told Abraham, I will bless you and I will bless your family, and through your family I will bless the world. God promised Abraham, through your family, I will bless the world, and I will bless your family. But God also promised something else to Abraham. He said, because of sin, because of humanity's decision to separate themselves from me, because humanity introduced death and pain and suffering and sickness and all kinds of things into the world that was never meant to be here, because of humanity's decision, because we sinned and we chose to separate ourselves from God, God promised Abraham, I will bless your family, I will bless the world through your family, but to get to the blessing, you're going to have to walk through suffering. To get to the promise, your family, your family is going to walk through something called slavery. And for 400 years, the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. And here's why. Because a lot of times we ask why. Why would God let the Israelites, if they were his chosen people, if that was his family, why would he let them endure slavery? It's because if we don't suffer, we don't grow. If we don't suffer, we don't grow. If everything is fine all the time, then we never need anything else. Come on, you with me tonight? Say yes. If we don't suffer, we don't grow. Some of you have been asking God to take you away from your suffering. Some of you have been asking God to take you out of the situation that you're in. Some of you are living in a broken home. You got mom and dad who fight, or maybe you don't live with dad or you don't live with mom. Some of you are in a situation you're asking God to take you out of it because it's not an ideal situation. But God is saying, I'm not going to take you out of it. I'm trying to walk with you through it. I'm not going to take you out of it because I'm trying to teach you something through it. Students, hear me tonight. If you would choose to walk with God, you will learn to live the life that you were created to live. The perfect life that he gave for you with a purpose and a plan and an identity. You wouldn't have to question who you are because God would tell you who you are. Oftentimes we ask God, take us out of the pain, but he says, no, learn how to walk with me through the pain because I guarantee you on the other side of the pain, on the other side of slavery, on the other side of suffering, there's promise. Everybody say promise. And so we've been talking about this. We've been talking about the Israelites walking to freedom. And what happens? Pastor Luke and Pastor Zach, they talked about it these last couple weeks. They get to the edge of the promised land. This land that God promised his people. Said this is a land flowing with milk and honey. Some of you are like, I don't like milk and I'm not sure about honey. So in our day and age, God would tell us, if we were the Israelites, this is a land flowing with Mountain Dew and Snickers. Some of y'all don't like Snickers? I'm not going to say it. If God was talking to us in this day and age, he would say, this is a land flowing with Raising Cane's and sweet tea. Uh-oh. Hey, look, I know all about Christian chicken, but you can't step on Cane's, man. Come on. Right? This is a land that has everything you will ever need. God tells the Israelites, God tells Abraham, this is a land where I will provide everything for you. This is a promise that I have for you. This is the land. And the Israelites step out of slavery. They've been there for 400 years. They get to the edge of the promised land. And God says, send them in, go, conquer the land. And what happens? What happens? You remember the story. They got afraid. Come on. Extra points for you, my guy. In heaven. I don't hand out. Okay. They got afraid. And their fear caused them to be disobedient. And their fear caused them to step out of trusting God. And their fear caused them to say, God does not have our best interest in mind. God does not have our best life in mind. God is sending us to a place where they're going to kill us. Their fear caused them to lose faith and lose trust in God. And so God tells the people in the book of Deuteronomy, he said, because of your disobedience, because that's the choice you made, because you chose not to do what I called you to do, you're going to have to suffer the consequence. And for you, the consequence is this. Everybody who came out of Egypt, the entire generation that came out of slavery, will die before they get to the promise. The entire generation has to die. Moses, he looks at Moses and said, Moses, because of your sin, because of your disobedience, you will die before you get to the promise. You will die before you get to the promise. Friends, when we don't trust God that he will provide for us, we're choosing not to follow him. And that path, the path that does not follow God, is a path that will always lead us to death outside of the promise. Come on. You with me tonight? Say yeah. Any path in life that we choose that does not follow God, does not obey his word, does not listen to his voice, any path that we choose outside of the path that God created us for is a path that leads to death outside of the promise. And that's exactly what happens. Because we will all take responsibility for the decisions that we make. Pastor Luke, Pastor Zach, they talked about this a few weeks ago. We all have decisions to make. That was awesome. We all have decisions to make. And we will all suffer the consequences of our decisions. Listen to me tonight. Consequence is not a bad word. There can be good consequences. Good decisions come with good consequences. Bad decisions come with bad consequences. But every decision has a consequence. And we will all suffer the consequences of our decisions. We all have decisions to make about our relationship with Jesus. We all have a decision to make. And so we're at the part in the story where we reach the promised land. The generation that came out of Egypt, they made a decision. They chose not to trust the Lord. They allowed their fear to overcome their faith. And so the consequence for that decision was they had to die before they could receive the promise, before the next generation could receive the promise. And so any decision that we make that is in opposition to God's word, it is a decision that separates us from his promise, separates us from his presence, and those decisions will always lead us to death outside of the promise. But, everybody say but. Not with two T's, only one. Some people got it. But, everybody say but. For those who choose to trust the Lord. Those who choose to trust the Lord, those who choose to be obedient to his word, those who choose to follow Jesus, those who choose to live the life that he's taught us and called us to live, those who choose to trust the Lord will enter into the promise and they will reap the benefits of the life they choose to live. Come on, that's good news. That should get us all excited. That should get us excited. Just turn them off. I'm done with the screens flashing at me. Turn them off. You don't need them anyway. You'll listen to me. Listen, that should get you excited because what the Bible tells us and what God promises us is that if we choose to follow him, we will receive the promise. We will inherit the kingdom. We will step into the land. We will step into the promises that God has guaranteed us through his word and through his son, through what Jesus did on the cross. So, my one and only point tonight is this. This is your time. This is your time. This is how the Bible puts it. Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 1 through 9. Says this, then Moses went up to Mount Nebo from the plains of Moab, climbed Pisgah Peak. Everybody say Pisgah Peak. It's like Pistol Pete, but not. Climbed Pisgah Peak, which is across from Jericho. Listen, this is across from Jericho. Jericho is on the edge of the promised land. And the Lord showed him the whole land from Gilead as far as Dan, all the land of Naphtali, the land of Ephraim, the land of Manasseh, the land of Judah, extending to the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev, the Jordan Valley, the Jericho, all of it. All of it. God showed Moses all of it. And the Lord said to Moses, this is the land that I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I told them that I would give it to their descendants. I have now allowed you to see it with your own eyes, but you will not enter the land. You will not enter the land. And so Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, just as the Lord has said. And the Lord buried him in a valley near Beth Peor. But to this day, no one knows the exact place. And in verse 9, it says this. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was full of the Spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him. So the people of Israel obeyed Joshua, doing just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Moses gave the people the word of the Lord. Moses had to suffer the consequences for his actions. And so he died outside of the promise. And now here we are. Joshua, he's full of the Holy Spirit. And now he becomes the leader of God's people. And this is what it says in Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 9. It says this, after the death of Moses, the Lord's servant, the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant, and he said, Moses, my servant, is dead. Therefore, the time has come for you to lead these people, the Israelites, across the Jordan River into the land that I am giving them. Listen to this. I promise you what I promised Moses. Wherever you set your foot, you will be on land that I have given you. From the Negev wilderness to Lebanon, to the Euphrates, in the east, to the Mediterranean Sea, in the west, including all the land of the Hittites. Listen to this. Verse 5 says this. No one will be able to stand against you as long as you live, for I will be with you. Just as I was with Moses, I will not fail you. I will not abandon you. God promises Joshua, I will be with you. In the same way I was with Moses, I will be with you. I will not abandon you. And then he says this. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess the land I swore to their ancestors. Be strong and courageous. Be careful to obey all the instructions that Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything you do. And then he tells them this, study this book. Study this book of instruction continually. Meditate on it day and night, so you will be sure to obey everything written in it. Only then will you prosper and succeed in all you do. This is my commandment. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Come on. Be strong, be courageous, and be obedient. Be strong, be courageous, and be obedient. God is telling Joshua, you are on the edge of the promise. The entire generation before you has died. This is your moment. This is your time, Joshua. This is the moment that all of your ancestors dreamed about. This is the moment that I told Abraham about. This is your time, Joshua. It is time for you to be obedient. It is time for you to have faith. It is time for you to trust my word. And it is time for you to take a step in faith and take action on what I've called you to do. Students, this is your time. This is your moment. This is your faith. This is no longer your parents' faith. This is no longer your parents' church. This is your church. This is your moment. This is your life. This is your time to step into the promise that God has called for your life. This is your time. Your time for obedience. Hear me tonight. If you hear nothing else that I say tonight, this is your time. You are where you are at right now in this moment for a reason. God has a plan for your life. God has a purpose for your life. God has a divine identity for your life. And this is your time to start walking in it. This is your time. As I was preparing this, I got so heavy on my heart, this word that the Lord spoke to me, and he wanted me to share it with you to say this. You are plan A for your school. You are his first choice for your school. Right now, in this moment where you're at, the kids that you encounter every day at school, he wants to use you to reach them for his glory. He wants to use you to build his kingdom in your school. He wants you to use your words and your actions and your voice to have an impact in people's life, to show them hope, to give them grace, to introduce them to Jesus, and show them the love of God. But you're too busy talking to your friend on a Wednesday night to pay attention to what God is trying to do in your life. This is your time. Will you be obedient to God? Or will you allow distractions to derail God's plan for your life? The Israelites were distracted by giants. They were distracted by a land that they had never been to. But God said, I've created it all, and I've already given it into your hand. Will you choose to live distracted, or will you choose to live obedient? Students, when you choose to be obedient to God and you partner with him, he will walk you into places that he has created for you, and he will do mighty works of miracles through your life. But obedience makes the difference. Obedience makes the difference. Worship team, you can come. Obedience makes the difference. Allow me to be the voice of God in your life for a moment, student. If you are here tonight, if you would say, I am a Christian, I am a follower of Jesus, I am a believer, then allow me to be God's mouthpiece in your life right now in this moment. If that is you in this place, you would say you are a Christian, you're a follower of Jesus, you're a disciple. That's the life you want to live. That's the life you claim to live. Then you are right now here in this moment called, commissioned, empowered, and equipped to tell your family, your friends, your classmates, your coworkers, your peers, everybody about Jesus. That is who you are. That is the purpose you have been given. The question tonight is this: will you be obedient? Will you be obedient? Will you be obedient to the voice of God in your life? Will you be obedient to the Holy Spirit when He guides you tomorrow when you're at school? Will you choose to live surrendered to what God has to do for your life? Will you be obedient? I love this story because it goes on to say that Joshua led the people into Jericho. And the people were fired up. They were excited. Finally, he got all of his fighting men together and said, now we're going to go. Now we're going to conquer the land. Now we're going to step into the promised land. And I bet he got the whole army behind him, and they're excited. Let's go. I got my swords. I got my Nerf guns. I've been practicing. I've been playing COD. I'm ready for this day. Come on. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Let's go. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's take the land. Let's conquer it. And Joshua says we're going to be obedient to what God has called us to do. And so what we're going to do is we're going to march around the wall. We're going to be silent. The pastors are going to blow a horn. We're going to carry the Ark of the Covenant, the presence of God with us. And we're going to march around the wall. For 6 days, one time each day, we're going to march around the wall. Could you imagine? Joshua, I'm strapped. I've got my swords. I've got my things. I'm ready to fight people. You're telling me I have to be silent. Yes, why? Because that's what the Lord said to do. And so we're going to be obedient. Day 1, all right, we're going to be obedient. Let's go. Day 2, okay, we're going to be obedient. Let's go. Day 3, this is starting to lose. I don't get it. This is starting to, I'm losing patience. This is starting not to make sense. Day 4, what are we doing? Joshua, what are we doing? We're being obedient. We're being obedient. We're being obedient. Day 5, I still don't get it. I still don't understand. It's okay. You don't need to understand. We're going to be obedient. We're going to be obedient. Day 6, Joshua, the wall is still there. Joshua, the wall is still big. Joshua, the wall is still standing. I don't understand it. It's okay. We're going to be obedient. Day 7, we're going to march around the wall 7 times, and we're going to do the same thing that we did for these 6 days, the first 6 times, and then on the 7th time when you hear the horn, everybody's going to shout, and God's going to move in mighty ways. And so for time number 1, day number 7, okay, we're marching. It's something, I don't understand it, but we're marching. Yes, we're being obedient. Time number 2, we're going around the wall. I'm going to be obedient. Time number 3, 4, 5, 6. Lap number 7, the horn sound. The people shout. And what happens? God knocks a wall down supernaturally so that people can walk into a city that once was surrounded by walls and only had one gate. They could flood into the city. They could capture the city. They could step into the promise because they were obedient. The walls fell. Because they were obedient to God, they stepped into the promise. Students, hear me tonight. What is God trying to do in your life that will only happen through obedience? What is God trying to do in your life that will only happen through obedience? Listen to me. God will never take you past your last step of obedience. What does that mean? That means the last thing He's asked you to do, that's where He's at. And if you've chosen not to do it, then you're walking on. You're leaving God in the dust. You're walking away from His plan. You're walking away from His promise. Because He's asked you to do something, that's where He's at, waiting for you to take that step in obedience. For some of you, there's somebody in your school that He asked you to reach out to last year, and you have chosen not to to do it, and you're frustrated because you're going to school every day and you don't feel the presence of God like you did before. You don't feel like God's doing anything in your life like He was before. And it's because you've chosen to be disobedient. And God is standing here saying, that person still needs to hear from you about me, and you haven't reached out yet. What is God asking you to do? What do you want God to do in your life? But it only comes through obedience. For some of you, God is telling you to sacrifice something. He's told you in the past, I want you to sacrifice the first hour of your day and spend it with me, and you haven't done it, and you're frustrated because you're not hearing God like you have before. And He's saying, that's because I asked you to do something and you're not doing it. You want to see God move? You want to hear God's voice? Start to be obedient. Start to live in obedience. Put away the distractions. Put away the idols. Put away the things in your life that are separating you from God, and begin to live in obedience. You know what would change you? If you woke up every day of the week and said, God, what would you want me to do today? God, who do you want me to reach today? God, how can I be obedient today for your kingdom, for your glory, for your name? Because it's not about me, it's all about you. So tonight, student, if you're here, I want to ask you this question. Will you choose to be obedient to the Lord? Will you choose to do what He's called you to do? No matter how wild, no matter how weird, no matter how much you don't understand it, will you choose to be obedient? Will you choose to set aside the distractions, to lay your life on the altar, to allow Him to do something in you that He's never done before? Will you choose obedience? Will you choose to be surrendered? Will you choose to be His light in the dark places that you encounter every day? Will you choose to be the generation that does what the generation before you didn't do? Will you choose to be the light of Jesus? So with heads up, eyes open, everyone looking around. If you're here tonight, you don't need to feel shamed into doing this. If your answer is no, let it be no. Answer honestly. But if you're here tonight and you say, Pastor August, I want to be obedient to the voice of God, then right now, get out of your seat and come down front.